seen some very, very warm conditions. In fact, it's our second mini heat wave. Now, can I just explain that not everybody had a heat wave? It is quite complicated. There is a threshold for different areas, basically. In the centre of London, it's 28 degrees. So you have to have 3 consecutive days. You can't have a Thursday, Friday, and a Sunday. It has to be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and perhaps a Sunday as well, of that threshold being broken or exceeded before you can call it a heat wave. But as you move out of London and you move further north, that threshold becomes lower and lower. So, in fact, we did have quite a few areas that did have heat waves and quite a few that didn't. But it was all kind of down to whether or not they were meeting those criteria. Now,
well, you might be a bit hot because, well, you were if you were in London. I don't know whether other parts of the country were a little bit cooler, depending on how close to the coast you were, whether you're in Scotland, for example. But today, officially, was the hottest day of the year so far in the UK. London saw a high of 34.7 degrees, while parts of Europe are battling higher temperatures. Tom Kington is the Times correspondent in Rome.
Well, here in Italy, one record has been broken this week. It's the record for the altitude over the Alps at which it reaches 0 centigrade. And usually you would have to go up to about 4,000 meters in June before the temperature descends to 0. On Sunday, you had to get up to 5,200 meters, and that was a record, according to Luca Mercalli, the president of the Italian Meteorological Society. Italy, as he explained, is particularly hard hit by climate change, given that it's surrounded by the Mediterranean on all sides, and the seawater is heating up fast in the Mediterranean. He told me that just off the French coast, right now the temperature is 26 centigrade. That's 5 centigrade higher than the 21 centigrade you'd find normally at this time of year. When the humidity rises from the Mediterranean due to the rising temperature of the water and the air temperature as well, it drifts up over the Alps, rises, condenses, and you get very violent storms, which provoked flash flooding this week in Bardonecchia near Turin, flash floods there that killed a local man. Another man died in the region of Emilia-Romagna, a manual labourer who was working on a building site. He died of suspected sunstroke, which has helped prompt a number of Italian regions this week to ban all outdoor manual labour during the hottest hours of the day in a bid to prevent further deaths.
That was Tom Kington speaking to us from Rome. Jo Wheeler is a meteorologist at Square Raindrop, and she joins me now. Jo, wow, what a day, hey? Weather records being broken both in Europe and here in the UK.
Well, yes, they weren't quite the records that we thought they were going to be. The daytime record for June is 35.6. That was set back in 1976, the very, very hot summer that some people might remember. Well, we didn't make that. We made 34.7. And of course, because today we've tipped over into July, our 34.7 wasn't as spectacular as it might have been.
It's all in 24 hours, is it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And it was just a couple of years ago that in RAF Coningsby, which is not too far away from me, there was 40.3 recorded. That was on the 19th of July 2022. And it was unlikely we were going to make that today. But certainly we have seen some very, very warm conditions. In fact, it's our second mini heat wave. Now, can I just explain that not everybody had a heat wave? It is quite complicated. There is a threshold for different areas, basically. In the centre of London, it's 28 degrees. So you have to have 3 consecutive days. You can't have a Thursday, Friday, and a Sunday. It has to be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and perhaps a Sunday as well, of that threshold being broken or exceeded before you can call it a heat wave. But as you move out of London and you move further north, that threshold becomes lower and lower. So, in fact, we did have quite a few areas that did have heat waves and quite a few that didn't. But it was all kind of down to whether or not they were meeting those criteria. Now, where our warm air came from was also quite interesting on both accounts. As I say, we've had these 2 periods of warm weather. The first one actually was an area of air that was close to Greenland, not a place you go for your sunny holidays. But what happened with that is that it travelled travelled around the high pressure that was over the UK at the time. And as the air descended, it heated quite rapidly. And that brought it all into the southeast. Now, interestingly, because that's quite an unusual occurrence, the same has just happened over the last few days, that this air originated over northeastern parts of the States. And again, it travelled across the Atlantic round a high pressure system and fed its way into the southeast, which is why it was the southeast and mostly the southeast that saw the high temperature today. Already everywhere else it's a little bit cooler, it's a little bit fresher, and that fresher air is going to reach everywhere by tomorrow. Probably won't really notice the difference until tomorrow night, mostly because at that point it'll be blanket across the country, and secondly, it's going to take a while for our houses to cool down. And even now at this time, almost 10:30 at night, temperatures at London Airport and Heathrow are still at 27 degrees, which is extremely warm.
I'm quite lucky because I'm sitting in a nice, cool, air-conditioned studio right now, sitting here nice and smug. Do you think we're just going to have to get used to the hotter weather and hotter temperatures each year? Are we equipped to cope, do you think?
Well, I have to say, I lived abroad for almost 10 years, down in the south of Portugal, and I can tell you that the construct of the buildings is very different. They are built for the heat. It does mean you get jolly cold in winter, but they are built for the heat, and we are not used to that. We don't tend to have air conditioning units. A lot of people don't think, when they hear a heat waves on the way and there's going to be plenty of sunshine, the first thing they do is say, great, get the sun lounges out, pour the Pims, let's have a barbecue. As soon as I heard there was a heat wave coming, I'm thinking, right, curtains shut. Yeah, I'm staying inside.
You're experienced though, aren't you?
Well, it is one of those things that you learn by living in a very hot country. And I remember going out to Portugal, to look for somewhere to live originally. And everybody that we went to see, every property we went to see, everybody was inside with the curtains shut. And we thought, what are they doing? It's beautiful outside. But yeah, you learn to live differently.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I am just a bit boring in that I'm doing that as well. And I have to admit that my little tip is to go to bed with a very cold, turned cold hot water bottle, which I put in the freezer like half an hour beforehand. It really works, Joe.
I hate cold things. I really do. A cold shower makes me feel homicidal.
Tell me about rain. Are we going to have any rain soon? What about the gardens? Are they all going to go brown and horrible?
Well, mine is because I cut it too short the other day, but it was the first time I cut it in some time. So that was deserved, I think. Yes, we are. Things are going to become more unsettled over the next few days. Initially, we have a bit of a northwest-southeast divide. So the rain will basically be in the north. But come the weekend, we're looking at an area of low pressure coming through, and that is likely to deliver quite a lot of rain to the south, providing it goes where it's supposed to go, if it behaves itself.
Joe Wheeler, really good to speak to you. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and keep cool. You're listening to Kate Jabot in for Carol Walker on Times Radio.